Hello everyone, I'm Tim from Tim's PC and I build custom PCs to suit anyone's needs or budget. I also live stream all my builds and repairs for transparency and educational purposes. So if you would like to get an awesome new PC and you'd like to see it get put together live, send me a message today. Alright, so tonight we're going to be building Rhys's PC. So this is going to be the first Radeon 6000 series card that we've done a PC build on here. So that's pretty cool. Supply has been worse than the NVIDIA 30 series cards. And basically, yeah, they've been few and far between. I've been able to get the 6900 XT, but massively overpriced at about $2,500 for about the last probably 6 weeks or so. But no one, if you're going to spend $2,500, people are like, oh, I'll just get a 3090. And you know, because they're already spending $2,500, so it's like an odd place for that card to come in. But the 6800 and the 6700 are coming in at better price points that are going to compete more with the 3060 Ti and the 3070. So that's positive to see a bit of competition in the market, because it's been very solid NVIDIA in terms of like new PC builds recently. I've asked around at other PC businesses and everyone's the same. It's pretty much all the demand's been for the NVIDIA 30 series card, and the Radeon, there has been, you know, some sort of Radeon fans out there who are interested in it, but in general everyone's been flocking to those 30 series cards. But like I said, I'm keen to build one. The Radeon 6000 series has an interesting feature called Smart Access Memory, where it combines the VRAM and the system RAM together for added performance. I'm not sure exactly how that translates into like gaming performance and all that. I have seen one segment on it briefly that sort of touched on it, but I haven't really delved into it myself personally. It's new technology, so this sort of thing, when I get a chance to have a look at it, that's when I sort of dive into it and get my head around things. Until then, I'm just like, oh yeah, it's another new thing that someone's bought out, you know, etc, etc. So let's get started. We'll go through the components we're going to be using here today. So we've got a Ryzen 5600X for our CPU. We have obviously the AMD Radeon 6000, so this is the Asus Tough Gaming card. The 6800 XT, so this is the OC edition. It's got a massive 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So a 3080 only has 10, this has 16, but the VRAM on the 3080 is the GDDR6X, which is like clocked higher or something. Basically, it's yeah, it's still GDDR6, but they've like tweak the design a little bit, essentially. So this is going to be our card. I can feel it must have a really good cooling solution on it, because it's quite heavy. It's got quite a bit of weight to it. So I'm assuming this will be, yeah, it takes up 2 slots at the back, but it will be 3 slots thickness for sure. So I'll put that one to the side. And for our motherboard, we've got the ROG Strix B550F gaming Wi-Fi. So it's got integrated Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 5. So that comes in handy. No need to install a Wi-Fi card for this board. What else have we got on this board that I can point out quickly? It's got dual M2. Yeah, nothing else. Oh, it's got 12-pin CPU power. But we'll have a look at the motherboard in a bit more detail when we start the build. So we've got a couple of storage devices here. We've got a couple of Samsungs. So we've got a Samsung 980 Pro. Is it called Pro? Yeah, Samsung 980 Pro. So this is a Gen 4 PCIe SSD. So this runs at the highest speed, and because we have an AMD B550 chipset motherboard, it will be compatible with Gen 4 SSDs. And then we've also got another one here. We've got just an ordinary SATA SSD here. So this is a Samsung 860 EVO. So this is like I said, this is a SATA SSD, so this is just going to be some extra storage. This is our main system drive here, the 980. Yeah, it's raining pretty heavily. So for our memory, we've got 32 gigabytes of T-Force Delta memory. So this is actually Rhys's memory from his previous build. He just dropped it in to use in this build, because I mean it's still relatively current memory. I think I can still buy this new. I'm pretty sure this looks like the exact same memory that I used in Alex's PC just a little while ago. So same sort of memory, 16 gigabyte DIMMs as well. And so for our power, we've got a gigabyte P850GM power supply. So it's a fully modular 80 plus gold power supply. This is a good value unit for what it is. And like I said, fully modular, and it comes equipped with the correct cables for running the 12-pin CPU power connector on this motherboard. So we'll put that over here. And we've got anything on the other side? I don't think we do. It's just our case here. So we've got just one of these ASA, I think they're called ASA 330, Iris 330, I think it is. Yeah, Iris 330. Yeah, that's the one. And so this one comes with two pre-installed RGB fans. There is a controller with it, but it's a bit of a dodgy controller, so we're actually not going to be utilizing that in the build. We're just going to be plugging those fans in to the motherboard directly for the RGB. So let's get started. So we will start with our motherboard and we'll see what we get inside the pack. Alright, so we got some stuff in the front here. Just unclips, doesn't it? Oh yeah. Got our Wi-Fi antenna. Oh, it's one of these lovely Asus ones. They're such high quality, not terrible Wi-Fi thing. It's not even magnetic. Alright, so what have we got down here? We've got some SATA cables, some zip ties, some M2 sticky things, some M2 screws, and an RGB extender converter cable. Cool. That looks like it converts Corsair to standard 5 volt. Yep. Yeah, it's relatively new. Yeah. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I used the exact same DIMMs in a build just recently. Alrighty, so let's have a look at this motherboard. So we've got some sticky over the rear I/O shield. Very fancy. Very, very fancy. We got any more sticky that we have to remove? Oh yeah, there is. I think that's it though. Alright, yeah, try to zoom in on the board here if we can. Alright, so we'll go around the board and we'll point out the features here. So, as I said earlier, we have 12 pins of CPU power on this board, which is pretty good because most B550 boards don't come with that. However, it's only needed if we're going to do some pretty serious overclocking. Pardon me. As can be expected on a ROG Strix board, we've got pretty good thermal solutions up around here on our co-processors and our VRM. We've got obviously standard mounting brackets there for the AMD cooler. We'll be changing that for, I think we're using a Wraith Prism, sorry, no, it's just a Wraith Stealth cooler for this. Up here we've got two fan headers here. One's like a lighter color here, that's designated as CPU. So that's the one, if you're in the BIOS screen, it'll say CPU. That'll be that fan header there. We've also got, that's a 12 volt RGB header up there. And we've got a 24 pin ATX power. So this one here, this powers like everything else on our motherboard. This CPU one powers the stuff up here around the CPU. So down below it there we've got a USB 3 front panel connection. We've got 6 SATA ports here orientated on the side. Down here we've got our front panel connections. We've got another fan header, 2 USB 2s, we've got another fan header there, and we have temp sensor pin and a clear CMOS header. Yep. And COM debug header. We've got a 5 volt RGB header, another 12 volt RGB header. It's a Thunderbolt header. And that is our front panel audio header down there at the bottom. So basically you'll always find that front panel audio connector right down the bottom corner of the motherboard, because standard layout on an ATX motherboard is with the audio section down here. They try to keep the audio as isolated as possible from other electrical signals on the motherboard. Because audio signals are electrical, they are subject to interference from other things that are going on. So that's why there's these really high quality gold capacitors that you see down here. These are really well insulated and stuff, so they're not interfered with. And that will lead you around the back here to the rear I/O. And that's why you always find your audio connections down that end of the motherboard, because it's been standard for my whole life on motherboards that they will have the audio section down here, and the audio connectors here will obviously be as close as possible to that. Then next to that we've got our Wi-Fi Bluetooth headers. That's where we'll screw in our antenna. We've got a HDMI and DisplayPort here. These will not be in use in this build because we're running a Ryzen 5600X, does not have onboard graphics. We've got, look, it doesn't say, so I'm going to assume it's just gigabit Ethernet. We've got 3 USB 3 or above ports with 1 Type-C, and that one looks like it's definitely a 3.2. These other ones look like they might just be 3s. Then we've got 2 USB 2s there. We've got a flash BIOS button and a designated BIOS flash port there as well. Which brings us around the front here. So we've got, that looks like, what's that, trusted platform module? Possibly. There's no designation of that one on the board there, so not 100% sure. I'm not going to take a guess without actually reading it somewhere. Then we've got 2 fan headers over here as well, so that's always handy. So we've got 2 here and 2 here, so a lot of fans just all in that section there. And then what have we got on the rest of the board? 1 there and 1 there. So total of 6 fan headers on the board. It would be nice if they had 8. But, you know, we'll take 6. It is a B550. They've got to leave something for the X570, right? So, like I said before, we've got 2 M.2 slots here. I'm going to assume that both of these slots will actually run at the full speed. But we'll just use this top one here because once we install our graphics card, it'll be nice if we can access that M.2 slot there. And it gets a bit tight trying to get into that one when you've got cables coming off here and a graphics card plugged in there. Yeah, it's easier to get at this one at the top there. And so, like I said, the graphics card will be plugged into this one here. So it's the same length as that one there, but this one is connected X16 all the way along, whereas this one down here is only connected X4 X4 length along, so not even X8. It's only connected to X4 of the way along. And these other three here, these are X1 ports. So, and these M.2s, these are actually X4, the same as what this one's connected as. It's just a different form factor. And obviously under here is where our motherboard chipset is, so that's what the B550 is in reference to. The dash F is like the model within that range from Asus. Anyway, let's get started on this build. So since we've got the memory just sitting out here, let's get that installed. So our first slot is this slot here. So we'll go ahead and install that. So on this motherboard, only half, like only one side of the little clips open up. So you've got to, you've got to just sort of put them in evenly, because these ones over here, they don't actually open, they're fixed. So you open one side, and then you've got to kind of slot it in the other side, then just, oh, I'm putting it around the wrong way. Once you get them in there evenly, then you can just press down and they'll click down, just like normal. So there's our memory. And so we'll install now our CPU. This is our Ryzen 5600X CPU. This is not actually the original box that it came in. This is just another box that I put it in just so it was clear for the video that what we were using. And we've got a Wraith Stealth cooler to go on top of it. So take that to the side. So now we'll just remove this standard AMD bracket. Change my screw bit. Alright, so we'll get rid of the standard bracket there. And now we'll open up our CPU socket. And we'll open up our nice brand new Ryzen 5600X. And so when I said it's not the box that it came in, I got it as an individual tray, so just in a tray. So I'm gonna have a good look at these pins before I go and try and put it in the socket, because all it takes is just one pin to be a little bit bent, and then you go and put it in the socket, then you bend a whole heap more. So it's important that you just give it a quick once over. You should be able to see those nice straight lines when you sort of angle it in the light with your eyes just on the right angle, and just kind of give it a look. You should see anything out of place, it should stick out. Okay, so on the bottom of our CPU we've got this little golden triangle. There's a little triangle in one of the corners of the socket. So you just want to line that up. There's also another tiny little golden triangle on the front side, just so you don't make a mistake. I would suggest, if you can't remember what side it's on, you probably shouldn't be building the PC. I suggest take a nap, wake up, and then reattempt after a coffee. Anyway, so there's our CPU installed. And so what we'll do, we've got this bit here, it says AMD on it. So what I like to do is, we've got T-Force, ROG Strix, that's facing that way. So let's just try and keep in line with the majority of the other writing on the motherboard, so it just looks like neat and as it should be. So we'll just place this down gently like that. And once you get a couple of corners down, which can be easier said than done. There we go. Once you get two opposite corners down, it's very easy to get the others in. There we go. And as for our cable, we'll stash that away. Just like this. There we go. So now our CPU cooler and our memory is installed. We can turn our attention to our M.2 SSD. Here it is. Gen 4 top of the line M.2 NVMe SSD. So this is what you want if you have an X570 B550 motherboard. And if you've got an older Intel board or something like that, and someone's trying to sell you a Samsung 980 M.2 NVMe SSD, you might want to ask them why they're selling you one that's not going to run at its full speed on your board, and why am I paying extra for it. So we'll need to install a little offset here. There we go. And then these just slot in on an angle. Just like that. And it just screws down like that. And there's our main boot drive installed. And so on the bottom of these is a thermal pad. There's a layer of sticky that needs to be removed. So just take that off. There we go. Put that heat spreader back on. And now our board is prepped, believe it or not. What was that? Something fell. Yeah. Who cares? So our SSD, we won't be installing that. We'll install it in our case, but we won't be connecting it until we've got Windows starting to be installed. So now we can turn our attention to the case. Yeah. Build. Oh man, are you out there working now? Oh, that sucks.
They were just lines saved by or something, or pretty slow to speed.
Yeah.
What?
These controllers that are,
Oh.
it's Molex to 5 volt, and it just goes through this little thing. Yeah. If you find that concerning, you have every right to feel concerned about it. You're right to feel concerned. The concern is justified, and that's why we won't be using it today. Oh, well, there you go. Nothing you can do about that. Alrighty, let's get our power supply in the case. So for this, we will need some SATA power. We'll need 2 CPU power connectors, and does this 68 take triple or double? No worries, Donald. Have a good one. Hey Rhys, I'm going to have a quick look at your card. I'm not familiar off the top of my head what the power solution is. And I want to see how many cables we're going to install here. So we normally don't unbox this till the end, but I just want to have a quick look. I'm not actually going to unbox it. Just want to have a quick look. Joule? Okay, Joule. Alright, forget you saw that. We'll just unbox it as we always do at the end. Okay, so our power supply. This is it, fully modular unit. 850 watts, 80 plus gold, puts out 849.6 watts on the 12 volt rail, so it's a true 850 watt power supply. It's all the power you need. Only reason you'd go more power is if you had like efficiency goals that you wanted to meet with your power supply, but that's not really something that ordinary users have to worry about. That's more like, I've got an office with 30 computers that run all day. It's that kind of shit. And if that's you, sure, let's talk power supplies. Save some money. So obviously we're going to need our 24-pin ATX power. And we're going to need this CPU power cable. So these are directional, so make sure you plug the right direction into the power supply. And if you're like, oh, what direction's that? Well, you just look at which section can be split into multiple sections, and that's the bit that plugs into the motherboard or the graphics card. What's this one? CPU, we'll definitely need another CPU. Well, we won't need it, but we'll plug it in anyway because the motherboard has the capacity for it. So it'll run just fine on the 8 pin. So again, these are directional, so just make sure you put the right direction into the power supply. And we'll get a couple of graphics card power cables. So even though there are 2 connectors on the one cable, we still want to use 2 cables. Okay, so the reason why we want to do that is because there's like a maximum amount of electricity that can go down each cable, and because we're using a high-powered graphics card, we don't want it to be like bottlenecked by the fact that it's only got one cable. We want to make sure that it gets all the power that it needs when it needs it. So we'll install 2, and that only makes a difference in, like, you know, the absolute, like, heat of gaming, like at the highest point of power consumption and stuff like that. That's the only time that's going to come into play. It's not going to be a big deal if you've got it plugged in with just the 2 coming off the one cable. It's like it's still going to work. It also makes for a cleaner looking build as well, because you can run the cables neatly. Okay, so we don't have any other graphics card cables or anything, so we've got this one here, which is our SATA power cable, and that's it. And so we've got 2 remaining cables. We've got a Molex cable and a secondary lot of SATA cables. So plug that in there. And these can probably get tied away in the 3.5-inch hard drive trays there. And there we have it. We've got our power supply all prepped and ready to go with the connections that we need. And we will mount this power supply. We'll actually mount this one face up. And so the reason why we're doing this is we're only going to have 1 fan at the back, and we're going to have 2 fans at the front, and we want to balance the airflow as much as possible. Did I drop? Oh no, there they are. So if we've got 2 fans on the front, we want 2 fans blowing out at the back. So if we have the power supply face up, it's got a big fan that blows out the back here. So that'll suck some air out of the case. And then also the other fan up here will also be sucking air out of the case, and then you'll have cool air in, warm air out, and there'll be this constant flow of cool air through the case. And this is what cooling with minimal fans looks like. You don't always need absolute shitloads of fans. Like, it looks pretty cool, and if that's the look you're going for, go for it. But yeah, you don't always need a lot of fans. Alright, so we've got our power supply screwed in there. So we might get our motherboard mounted and our SSD mounted. Oh, so we haven't even opened up the front of this case. Nope. They're a bit tight. Yeah, they get, like, the first time you undo them, I've noticed on this case a few times this happens. Okay, getting rid of that other bit of sticky on the other side. It'll make our lives easier when we put it back. Okay, get around back. Yep.
I was sold to get that card, can't afford more fan.
Ah, no, it's all good. One thing about when we build a PC here, like, I've got a big box of spare fans, so if we need to increase airflow through this case and it doesn't pass the stress test, well, we'll chuck another fan in it. We'll reconfigure things. We'll make sure it's working right in its current form before you get it. So, well, we got the 6. Yeah. So we'll change over to our other piece. And did I get a big bag of stuff? Yep. Remote for the controller that we're not using. Okay, so we're going to need 3 more offsets for this motherboard. We don't have a sneaky 4th, no. These are a bunch of fun to screw in if you don't have the right tool. Oh yeah. Okay, so now we've got all of those offsets installed and they're all in the right spot. We can go ahead and put our motherboard in. So I'll have to lie this one down. Should be testing our new little camera for this, but it's not set up. Kinda is, but it's not plugged in at the moment. But here it is. I had a little webcam on a stick that I can just sort of like stick down like that. It's got little bendy feet so you can like position it. So I'll be able to like have a view of like what I'm doing when I'm doing shit like this. Well, that's my thoughts anyway. We'll see how well it works. Alright, so we will go back to our standard screwdriver piece. Get our 9 screws in place. Yeah, so you'll get to, when I have that camera set up, you'll get to watch all the fun of me screwing things down. It's lots of fun. This motherboard takes the fine threaded screws. Well, see, it's not the motherboard, it's the case. No. No. Yeah.
For instance, you don't bench test your motherboards.
Don't bench test the motherboard. No, not generally. Just do we just check the CPU and the graphics card and the thermal performance. We look at the temperatures of the motherboard after the stress test, but motherboard specific benchmarks and stuff like that, that's stuff for other channels and stuff, because like I don't have time. I already do a fair bit of extra stuff that other PC builders don't do with the builds, so like I don't have time. I'd love to do all that, but I just don't have enough time in the day to make the videos. So like I said, we do stress tests on the CPU and the graphics card, do synthetic loads on them to make sure that the thermal performance of the case and everything that's in there is going to be stable for the person when they go to use it. But as for like, let's see how much better this ROG Strix is than like an Aorus B550 Elite or something like that, no, I don't have time. I don't have time for it. Unfortunately, I'm an enthusiast as well, so I get it. And I'm a bit of a motherboard enthusiast myself personally, so don't get me wrong. It's just, yeah, all this stuff takes time. And realistically, it's not. Motherboard performance is pretty low on most people's like agenda. Most people try and buy the cheapest, crappiest motherboard that they can get, and then they put all high-end stuff in it. That's the general kind of rule. It's not ideal, obviously. Like, you obviously know the difference if you're asking about motherboard benchmarks. But yeah, like I said, just a time thing realistically.
This is by bench tests, I mean testing the motherboard before putting it in the case.
Oh,
testing
oh no, DOAs are pretty rare. I get all my stuff from reputable resellers and retailers and wholesalers, so I'm generally not too concerned. I sometimes get a DOA, but it's not worth hooking up a power supply and a monitor and stuff before I like do the build. Actually, no, just do standard and. Yeah. Yeah, no, so like I would I had a DOA just the other day, but like I mean in general it doesn't happen that often. It does happen, but you know, if it happens, it happens, it happens. I can still complete the rest of the build. I can get the power supply installed, I can get the case installed, the cooler, pretty much everything. And then if I get a dead motherboard, it's basically, yep, disconnect the cooler, take the screws out, put the motherboard back. What I normally do is I go wherever I bought it. As soon as I get a DOA, I just place another order for another unit of whatever it is, and then when I go to pick up that new unit, I just go in and see them and just go, hey guys, I've got an RMA. This is what's happening with it. It's dead. Confirmed it, and they'll just go, yeah, no worries. We'll give you your money back. We'll just check it out quickly.
And since I know I was watching you when you got that DOA.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a little like you normally expect a DOA like on something crap, but it can happen on any board, whether it's a high-end one or anything. Like I was saying to people that night, there's still a lot of human error and stuff involved with manufacturing motherboards and stuff. A lot of the stuff that gets put on, like the board, obviously, the board itself gets manufactured like, you know, by machines and stuff, printed by machines. But a lot of those little capacitors and stuff that you see on the boards, they get put on by hand in a lot of cases. So there is always a chance for human error and stuff to come into motherboards, and that's why you'll find dead on arrival motherboards more so than any other part, just because of the fact that there is that human factor in there. Where if you compare it to something like CPUs basically they never come in dead on arrival. Like it's always safe to assume that it's not the CPU that's broken, unless you've like seriously abused the CPU. Not just like, oh, it got pretty hot one day and it, like, my Intel CPU got to like 103. That's not, I wouldn't call that abuse. Abuse is like seriously overvolting it, seriously overtemping it, and, you know, running it until it's essentially starting to melt. That's abuse, but normal people are never going to do that to a CPU. So unless you're one of those extreme overclockers, CPUs almost never go bad, so they will lose some performance over their life. That's just the nature of it, but yeah, in terms of actually going completely bad, it's pretty rare. So CPUs are always good. SSDs almost never go bad, never have a bad SSD. It's almost always a SATA cable or something like that is wrong, or one of the SATA power, like the plugs on the cable, one of them will be damaged or defective in some way, and you plug in with another one and it'll work. Yeah, those sort of things you'll find more often. Power supplies come up sometimes, also pretty rare, especially if you're buying, like I only install 80 plus rated power supplies in all my builds, so that's pretty rare as well. You generally don't have too many dead on arrival power supplies, but I did have a Thermaltake 80 plus bronze one recently that was dead on arrival, but like I said, I haven't, before that I hadn't seen a dead on arrival power supply for years, so that just goes to show how rare it actually is. Alright, so we've got our SSD installed at the back there. We've got some other cables here as well. Oh no. One of our front panel cables is wedged behind the SSD. This bolt here will have to come completely out. And so yeah, you see me put all 4 bolts in the SSD here. It's not really necessary. They're really light and they have no moving parts. So if you can only get 2 of the bolts in because they're obstructed by fans or something like that, that's okay. It's not a big deal as long as the SSD is secure. You can, if you don't have anywhere to mount it, you can just plug it in the power, plug in the SATA cable, stick it in the back, close the back cover, and just go, I'm never opening the back cover or the SSD will fall out. And that's fine, it's going to work just the same. Like I said, there's no moving parts. That's why we bolt down things like optical drives and hard disk drives, because they've got moving parts. Anything with moving parts, sensitive to vibrations and being jolted. So very important that it's screwed down and held secure. No moving parts, well, yeah. They put 4 screws on them because drives have 4 screws normally that people screw in, or more. So they just put 4 screws on it. That was the design they came up with, and that's pretty much what we see now. Alright, so what we'll start with these fans and RGB, and I'm pretty sure we'll need to add another fan to the back there. Okay. What's that? Is that group chat or something? It'll just be group chat. What's happening? What did I miss? Just settle down, guys. Settle down.
What's wrong?
Oh, it's nothing. It's just the group chat. So I'm part of a PC builders group chat, other businesses around the country. and we kind of talk and share ideas and share parts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have. Like, I've worked in various sales jobs, and there's always a group chat. Because usually, if you're working remotely from your team, you're not always with each other in the same room every day. There's always that benefit from being able to like share ideas and share things that are going on. Okay, so we've got a exhaust fan there, we've got the power supply like that, so we've got two in the front, two coming out the back. What else have we got? What's this situation look like here? Why is that RGB coming out there? That's just not a good way to wire it up. Thanks guys, I really wanted to like rewire everything. I love it. Okay, let's sort this mess out. Fan, front panel, RGB, and zero fan. You're a fan, I'm a fan. We're all fans. Let me turn this around so you actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so we've got these cables here, which are our front panel connections. So we're going to run them down here and to the bottom of the motherboard. And then we've got this one here, and where's the other fan? Yeah, caught up with the front panels. Here's our other fan, still tied up. So now we've got these two fans here as well. So put these to the side and we'll worry about this RGB first. So first thing we do when we daisy chain, so you make sure that there's no missed connections or anything like that. Start by plugging one of your devices into the motherboard. If you can get it on the header. The only thing I don't like about these 5-volt headers, they're just really hard to get on. There we go. So we've got that RGB header on the 5-volt header, sorry, the RGB cable on the 5-volt header. And we've got this one here which looks like another header on a pin. So that's what we can use to daisy chain up the rest. And so we've got this one here with a plug on it, because that's what we hook other devices up to in the daisy chain. And we're just going to plug this one in here. Just like that. And we'll probably run this probably at the back here like this, I reckon. How's that going to work? Yep. Okay, so now I've got a couple of fans to install. Oh, okay, that's not a hole. Alright. You can go and sneak it. I'm going to sneak it under here. So sneak the spot where I can fit it through. Bet. Where's that spot? Right up here. fan header up here. There's not one in the other corner, that's right. Alrighty, so we've got those two fans in the front plugged in. Just got this one here. So what we'll do, got a solid block, not completely. So we're just going to conceal this cable. Just like that. They leave just a little bit of room like underneath. It's for a bit of airflow, but if you're just running one little thin cable under there, it's not going to make a big difference. And there we've got a fan wired in, and it's just got that little tiny bit of cable visible. Oh shit, I don't think you can see that properly. Yeah, so we could run the cable underneath this heatsink here. So there's a little bit of room under there that you can run a cable. You're meant to have it free for airflow and stuff, but if you're just running one little thin cable, it's not going to make a big difference. So now we've got our 3 fans installed, and obviously we've got a fan on the CPU there. So now we can turn our attention to these front panel connectors. And so we've started to sort of lay some cables down this way. So some more cable ties here. Okay, so I think our USB 3 actually plugs in from around here. Yep. It's always an awkward cable to plug in. And then we've just got our front panel connectors, a USB Type 2, and our front panel audio. So these can all go down the bottom. So a USB 2, which is this one. Probably route these a slightly different way. So This one will go down on this diagonal kind of cable route that we've made. Go. This is our front panel audio, and then we've just got these front panel connectors here. We've got RGB there. So I'll route these ones. These can go directly down. So we can tie down a few of these other cables here as well. This will be a nice, neat job of cable management here tonight, because there's not too many cables to manage. Okay, so our USB 2 will just slot in there. Yeah, 6800, a little bit different this time. Our power switch. Got our HD LED. And we've got our reset switch. Okay, so that leaves us with just our power cables to plug in. So we can start with our CPU power cables. So we've got two here. You know how much fun I have with these. See, I'm already having fun. Just feeding him through. Gotcha. Excellent. It's definitely in. Yep. Cool, cool. Oh, the hard part's done. Oh, I can relax now. Got the CPU power in.
It's always a struggle.
It is. There we go. And so I've concealed that USB 3 with our power supply cable. Now we're just left with our graphics card cables. But we will hook up our SATA for our hard drive, and we will tidy up these cables a little bit. So what we're going to do here, I reckon, trying to keep that particular shape. Oh wait, that's probably going to be a problem. Because we need a little bit of clearance there for go. It should be okay like that. Because we've only got one SATA device, we're going to tie up the rest of these cables here like this. I'm going to stash them back here, out of the way, and we'll just run this one in a bit of a tight fit. Alright, that still looks pretty good. Putting a bit of pressure on that plug. But it's actually like scratched the outer cable there. No. Let us let's just mount it here. Be less visible anyway. Alrighty. Alrighty, so we've got that installed there. Let's grab a SATA power. Alright, we're just going to leave that SATA cable like that because we're not going to plug it in yet. And these are for our graphics card. So main event time. Get a quick look at that case there. And yeah, Rhys, yeah, this is definitely a new one for me. It's my first Radeon 6800 and it's the first Radeon 6000 series card. Like I said at the start, the situation with getting these has been harder than getting the 30 series cards. Supplies are getting better now, but yeah. So now let's actually unbox it. that. You've got to hold it with two hands. It's got some serious weight to it. Of course, they've covered it with sticky stuff. I know some people like to leave this on, but you can't leave this sort of stuff on computers. So that nice sort of brushed aluminium tyre tracks looks like running through it. It's pretty cool. Now we've got more sticky. Is that sticky on top of more sticky? Yes. Layered sticky. Oh. There we go, so I think that's all of it. Oh no, can't forget the sticky over the rear I/O. So there it is, the Radeon 6800 XT, a tank of a card, the Asus Tough Gaming version. So, we're going to be utilising slot 2 and 3 for this. So in this case we've just got these pop-out panels. They just bend out and snap out of place. Just make sure that if you've got a motherboard that's got capacitors that are in the way of them, to snap these out before you start the build. And don't snap them out after the motherboard's in the case. Alright, so this is definitely a tank graphics card. So I dare say this bracket here is going to get bent with a card that weighs this much. So maybe consider getting a bracket to hold it, or just sticking a toilet roll under it or something. Like, no judgment. Oh, hang on, we've got this little access door that I've got to open. Whoa. That's a hefty meatball. Okay. So there's our card installed. So all we've got left to do now is our graphics card power cables. And what we'll do for them probably run them out here. We're going to run them in from the top down. Okay, I need a couple more cable ties to finish this off. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing a little bit closer now. So we don't have any fancy cable extenders or anything, but that doesn't mean we can't make this look really good. There we go. And that will hopefully help support the graphics card a little bit as well, from having the cables up like that. They're sort of helping to hold it up a little bit more, and it looks nice and neat. It's got this nice smooth curve from out the back to the front there. So that's it, we're all good to go. So this is the part where we see if I've made a mistake or not. HDMI's down here. Gotta put those plugs in place. Excellent. So now we just need our boot drive, and that's pretty much mission accomplished. I'm feeling pretty good, so I'm going to chuck the back panel on. There's our case bolts. Alrighty, so we've got our back panel on there. We'll just leave the front panel off at first, and we'll see how it goes. So the power on is on the side here, and it should have RGB lighting up around there as well. Seeing some signs of life. I don't have my wireless mouse plugged in over here. There we go. Okay, I don't need help. What we want is our memory. Memory. Yeah, they have a, yes, just have a profile 1. Yep, excellent. It's all I wanted to do. Really simple. Okay. Is it not detecting my USB? Is now. Alrighty. There we go, there's our 1 terabyte NVMe drive. Go yes. And now plug in that SATA cable. Easier said than done. There we go. So now we have our SATA SSD installed as well. So we can go ahead and restart. Yeah, Rhys, I'm just seeing your comment there now about the 6900's really just a Halo card. Yeah, and I wouldn't pay. I'm not really keen on the prices of the 6900 for what it is. I think you've picked wisely with the 68. And I think we're going to see some pretty impressive numbers from it as well, so it should be good. So you can see those RGB fans on the front. You can see the RGB RAM and the reflections inside the case there. You can see the RGB on the front panels, on the front I/O there. So we can start to set up our Wi-Fi dongle as well. Okay, so let's do this quickly. Australia, keyboard language, US, no second layout. I don't have internet, what are you talking about? What's the internet? I'm just trying to install it so I can play Hearts. And Minesweeper. And all my favourite games. No, I don't need Cortana. This might take several minutes. Or it might not. Perfect timing. Look at that. So let's get some internet. So we'll get Armory Crate installed and we'll get all those drivers going on. We'll hide and get rid of things that we don't need. We'll get Cinebench. Cinebench R213, that'd be interesting. Okay, let's get Windows updates, and then we'll plug in our SSD and get some software. Alright, let's put some custom icons down on the desktop to keep our desktop organized. And what do we want? Okay, something's interfering with that right now. What am I doing? I'm installing GeForce drivers for some reason. Let's not do that. MSI Afterburner. Some updates first. Okay. So adjust the time zone to Brizzy time. 8:40. I'll run it muscle afterburner now. Alright, that's pretty much all done. Waiting on a restart. You right? Yeah, if anyone from ASUS is watching, seriously, some like real cheap magnetic material on the bottom would make this thing a lot better. What? I'm not seeing hardware monitor. Okay, so that's all done. So let's set up our other SSD. So we can unplug Windows, we can unplug my SSD, and we'll set up our SATA SSD. D drive, we'll just call it storage. There we go, there's our new drive, storage SSD. Okay. How's that going? 74. Okay. Steam. Oh, we haven't got Origin. Origin should install now. And Epic didn't want to install either. Okay. Tidy up that desktop. And we're pending restart. Did one of those case bolts fall on the floor down there? One of these? There we go. Is it not on the right way or something? I don't think it was. I should really be starting this again. Why is that not opening? It's taking too long. Thank you. Jesus. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we need these. Get these cumulative Windows updates. Won't take long. So here is our 6-core 12-threaded CPU, our 32 gigabytes of RAM at 3200 megahertz, our 860 Evo, and our 980 Pro with Windows on it. So his Windows not installed our graphics card drivers. Okay. Here's our graphics card drive. No, don't allow AMD to collect anonymous usage information. Okay, so now we get everything installed. Oh, okay. That I have to change over here. So what was it again? What was that? Damn. That sucks. So, I would have to end the stream to correct that. It's an issue that we get with Radeon cards sometimes. The app that I'm using to do all the streaming on is recognizing it as protected content from like an iPad. I can turn that setting off, but I have to end the stream to do so. so that's a bit of a pain. What I might do is we might just end the stream here tonight, and what I'll do is I'll take some screenshots of it, or what I reckon we might even fire it up again tomorrow and actually run the gaming benchmarks, and I'm just gonna run the stress test on it here tonight, and see how that goes. I reckon that might be the way to go. That, you know, I don't want to like get out of the stream and then start up a new one tonight just for doing the benchmarks. So yeah, that kind of sucks. I mean, let me just fire up Furmark, and 1080p. Okay, so 1080p, Furmark, 288 frames a second. So happy days, you got a 240 hertz monitor. This card should keep up in most games at some settings anyway. So get out of that one. Let's have a look at, let's run Heaven. I'll just tell you these quickly. Let's run Heaven on maximum settings. Let me just run this. Okay, Heaven on the highest settings. The intro scene is running at about 180 frames a second. And this is on the highest settings. Second scene, we're going from 220 to 260. Third scene, we're going from 270 to 280. Fourth scene, a little bit lower, 180 to 190. Fifth scene, 220 to 230. You get the idea. So that's on the highest. But let's the real one that we want to look at is really what it's like on the lowest, right? Because that's going to give us the biggest frame rate. So let's run the same thing again. Okay, so opening scene, we're getting between 290 and 310 frames a second. So second frame is between 400 and 500 frames a second. Third scene is between 200 and 300. Fourth scene's between 200 and 300, and yeah, it's getting to 3. Fifth scene, 300 to 400 frames a second. 500. Man, it's cranking. Absolutely cranking out the frames. It's a shame you can't see it. But like I said, what I'll probably do, I'll run the stress test on it tonight. We'll get all that out of the way. And then I'll fire this back up again tomorrow, and you'll actually be able to see it all. And I'll run through a couple of the benchmarks we do here for the games. So, well, that kind of sucks that we got interrupted by that stupid Radeon glitch with the software that I'm using. Doesn't happen too often because I don't get too many Radeon cards, unfortunately. But this one seems like a beauty. From what I've seen so far, it seems to be running cool. So we'll keep playing around with it. We'll run this stress test and we'll see how it goes. So I'll have to come over here and end this because my wireless mouse isn't plugged in. But I'll catch you all later, and I've got more content coming up tomorrow, so check it out. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.